Good morning, everybody. I'd like to call to order the Executive Committee meeting for June 8th, Friday. Welcome. Item number 1 is the approval of meeting minutes. Are there any changes or modifications to May 11th, 2018?
Move approval.
Supervisor Horn and Mr. Wells, thank you very much. Would you please vote?
Got it.
Voting is closed. That passes. Thank you very much. Item number 2, public comments. Do we have any speakers? There are no speakers for public comments for item 2. We will go to item number 3, which is review of draft board agendas, and we'll ask Victoria to give us that report.
Good morning.
Good morning.
All right. For the June 22nd draft board business agenda, we have item number 1, which is approval of the meeting minutes, followed by public comments, communication member comments, followed by item number 3, which is the actions from policy advisory committees. On the consent calendar, we have item number 4, which is the approval of the proposed solicitations and contracts. This is a placeholder. At this time, we don't have any awards. Item number 5 is the Federal Transit Administration Section 5311 Program of Projects. We're seeking an approved, followed by item number 6, which is the FY19 claims for Transportation Development Act and State Transit Assistance. This is to provide transit funding for North County Transit. Item number 7 is the California Active Transportation Program Cycle 4 Regional Active Transportation Program. This would be certifying the submissions for the ATP program. Item number 8 is the 2018 San Diego Regional Tribal Summit proceedings. Due to the timing, we'd like to take this to Borders Committee. We're suggesting that we push this off and bring this to a later meeting in July or August. Item number 9 is the San Diego Forward 2019-2050 Regional Plan Transportation Network Theme Outreach Update. So this will be a summary of all of the public input that was garnered for the regional plan. Item number 10, which you'll be hearing today, is the annual review of committees and working groups. Item number 11 is your standard report on meetings and events attended on behalf of Sandag, followed by item number 12, which is the report summarizing delegated actions taken by the executive director. On your chair's report, we have a standing update on the Sandag executive director recruitment. Under reports, we have the downtown bus stopover and multi-use facilities to be for discussion, possible action to discuss the next steps for the downtown stopover. As you may recall, this was on a previous agenda, but was pushed to June. Item number 15 is the Sandag Audit Committee audit activities. This will be broken up into 3 parts. The board will be asked to appoint the public members, the board members, and then also approve funding for the recruitment of the independent performance auditor position. Item number 16 is the proposed FY19 program budget amendments for the state funding awards. This is to incorporate the SB1 funds that came to the region. Item number 17 is the proposed use of design sequencing for the State Route 11 Otay Mesa East Port of Entry project. And this would be able to expedite completion of the Port of Entry. Item number 18 is San Diego Forward, the 2019-2050 Regional Plan Social Equity Analysis Framework and Approach. This is coming up from Regional Planning and Transportation Committee and would be incorporated into the regional plan. Item number 19 is the Regional Climate Action Planning Framework. The Board of Directors is asked to accept this as a guidance document for local climate planning activities. Item number 20 is Assembly Bill 805 Public Transit Report, and we're seeking an approval for this. And that concludes the June 22nd agenda.
Any comments or discussion of that particular agenda item or the proposed agenda? Do we want to do both of them together?
Sure. For your July 13th draft board policy agenda, we have item number 1, which is public comments, communication member comments, followed by a chair's report, which is an update on the executive director recruitment, which will be provided for information, followed by the reports. Item number 3, we have the FY18 Transnet Triennial Performance audit update based on feedback from the Transportation Committee. We'll be providing a preview of the Transnet progress being made towards the Transnet ordinance goals and next steps in addressing the audit recommendations. And then item number 4 is a Transnet program health report, which will be provided for discussion. And this is related to the Regional Bikeways program. And item number 5 is the Plan of Excellence implementation. This was on your June 8th agenda, but we're proposing that this be brought to you on July 13th.
Any comments or questions on those agendas? If not, could I have a motion to approve? Mr. Voss, approve motion. Is there a second? Second from President Cole. Any further discussion? If not, please vote. Okay. There we go. Vote is closed. Thank you very much. Moving to item number 4, and Victoria will do that also, but I'd like to highlight just the addition of the community-based organizations, which I think you will talk about in just a second. Okay.
So the Executive Committee is responsible for annually reviewing the list of Sandag committees and working groups to determine any needs for revisions or functions in membership. Currently, Sandag supports 20 different committees and working groups. Attachment 1 of this item on page 17 of your iPad depicts the relationships between each PAC and all the working groups. Attachment 2 on your report on page 21 lists the membership, responsibilities, year established, frequency, and status of each of the groups. This year, as the chair mentioned, there's one proposed addition. The 2019 Regional Plan Community-Based Organization Working Group was created in February of 2018. And they were established to provide input from disadvantaged and underrepresented communities to provide input into the regional plan. The working group is comprised of 13 members from CBOs or various community collaboratives selected through a competitive process through a request for proposals by Sandag. In accordance with the charter, the working group is chaired by Coronado Mayor Richard Bailey and will sunset at the adoption of the regional plan, and the charter is listed as attachment 3 of this report. Sandag board policy also requires that an informational report be provided to the board of directors. This report is slated to occur on June 22nd. That concludes my report, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Any questions regarding the committees or working groups for Victoria? This is primarily for discussion. We don't need an approval unless there's some changes. I'm not hearing any changes or corrections. So we'll thank you for that, and we'll move to item number 5, which is our legislative status report. And Robin's going to do that one.
Gliding through this agenda. Good morning. All right, so the latest from Sacramento, last Friday was the deadline for all bills to pass out of their House of Origin, meaning if it was introduced in the Assembly, it had to be out of the Assembly, same if it was introduced in the Senate, it had to be out of the Senate. So the good news is our bill, Senate Bill 1151, the Neighborhood Electric Vehicle Bill, continues to move through the process. It passed out of the Senate unanimously and will be heard by the Assembly Transportation Committee next, probably at the end of this month. There's also several housing bills that continue to move through the process. We're not going to get into the details today because honestly these bills are changing day to day. Now is really the time when a lot of amendments are being taken. But we did just want to flag a few of those for you and then come back in July once we have a better idea of what these bills are actually going to look like. So a few of those, Senate Bill 828 from Senator Wiener and Assembly Bill 1771 by Assemblymember Bloom. Both of those have to do with housing goals for local cities and counties, as well as target setting for the RHNA process. Assembly Bill 686 by Assemblymember Santiago would require local governments to take certain actions related to fair housing. And lastly on the list is a Senate Bill 831 by Senator Wykowski. And this actually would make it illegal for cities or counties to charge fees for backyard or garage units. It also would prohibit requiring off-street parking. So usually you probably hear about a lot of these bills through the League of California Cities or CSAC. but given how they may impact the RENA process and our local jurisdiction, Sandag is watching them very closely and coordinating with a lot of our counterpart transportation agencies throughout the state to make sure, one, the authors understand kind of what implementation would really look like if some of these bills were passed, and understanding the practical implications. So if, for example, you're setting targets in one bill and other targets in another bill, how do we help to reconcile those two sometimes competing priorities? On a related note, the Governor's May Revise was released last month, and it included about $395 million in additional funding to support to address homelessness. The Governor's characterized this as somewhat of a bridge funding. You know that we have the SB2 from last year from Senator Atkins that included some of the real estate transaction fees. They're starting to materialize now, and then we also will have the housing bond on this November ballot. So in the meantime, the Governor is proposing this funding to serve as a bridge to address homelessness. Page 36 of your iPads outlines what the Governor proposes to do with this funding, but some of the major expenditures include $250 million for a one-time homelessness emergency aid block grant program for cities, counties, and JPAs, a $50 million increase in funding for counties to help homeless persons in need of mental health services, and a $15 million Home Safe pilot program to provide housing to seniors. The Governor's May Revise also includes about $2.8 billion in new SB1 funds for state and local transportation projects. A lot of this we'll see through the formula funding streams that were established over the last year that go directly to all of the cities and the county, regional agencies like Sandag, as well as our transit operators. Now, both the Senate and the Assembly also have their own budget proposals, and both of those include higher spending levels than the Governor's. So they have the next 2 weeks to kind of hammer out those differences. The budget is required to be passed by June 15th. So similar to the legislation, next month probably is going to be a pretty dense state report to let you know what happened with the budget and what the current status is of a lot of those bills that we're following. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for Robin? Yeah. For Robin.
The bill that is related to RENA numbers, what is proposed?
So there's several, and that's why we didn't want to focus on just one right now, because what it's looking like, the legislature's basically said we want to do something related to housing this year, right? Last year they started with the funding. This year they're focusing on RENA or local housing goals, things like that. So they have the carrot and the stick. So a lot of members have introduced bills, and now's the time when they're all working together and waiting to see what comes out of it. So I would just say, in general, they're looking at the factors that are used to come up with RENA numbers, some of the same conversations that we've been having at the board level, as well as things that they can do at the local level to help incentivize more housing.
So it's
from the top and the
incentive
bottom.
level, not a mandate. Do you think they would go that far to mandate?
It looks like both, doesn't it?
Yes.
Correct.
I have
I have a question on the $50 million that's the augmenting for the mental health services. That's statewide, $50 million.
I believe so.
Is there any sort of a guess on what San Diego County might get out of that?
Not that I'm aware of, but we can definitely look into that. It
Because I don't know
probably
if
will
that's done by population or across the board
Let
in
me
county
find out
lines.
what the criteria are.
Okay, thanks.
Other questions or comments? Okay. Thank you. That was for information. Thank you very much. No other public speakers? This is
Boom.
this is tremendous.
This is the record.
There should be a little bit of a notification in the history of Sandag. But rest up. We have a big board meeting, and thank you very much. Our next executive committee meeting will be July 13th at 9 a.m. Thank you very much, and we are adjourned.